Hello everyone and welcome back to the Airing It Out podcast. So today we have got another interview, one that I'm very excited for. I am joined by Jessie Jeff. Jessie, thank you for being with us.
Hello.
Now, I would love to tell the audience who you were, but I don't think I could do it justice. So how would you, in brief, describe yourself? How would you tell the audience who you are?
Hello, so nice to see you. My name's Jessie. I am do you want me to just go over like being what I am from background, paramedic or?
All of it. All of it. Tell us who you
So
are.
I am Jessie. I am 33 years old. I am a paramedic by background. I live with my husband. I've got a big, huge past that I'm sure we're going to explore throughout this interview. Part of the past being that I'm actually a gypsy. I came out of school with nothing, not one GCSE. And basically throughout life, I've overcome most challenges that I've always wanted to do.
Yeah.
And that's me in a nutshell, really.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you'll get to know a lot more as you...
And the thing is, for me personally, like I've met you out and about, and you would never have thought that you would have had this past of coming from near nothing to being what you are today. So there's so much to learn, and I think there is so much that the audience has to gain from listening in today.
Thank you.
Before we go jumping into the episode, I like to start interviews with a silly little question, just something to break the ice and to get the ball rolling. I had an idea. Last time it was, what was the worst thing to eat on a podcast? And we came up with some pretty great ideas. But today I wanted to think, like, what is the worst bit of mental health advice that you could give someone? Like, completely non-seriously.
Oh, cheer up.
Yeah, cheer up. Nice. Mine was...
Cheer up. Hate that one.
Mine was just, I just bottle it up, they're just emotions.
Yeah.
But I did ask the audience, and I got some pretty interesting responses from people. It said, just smile. That's a good one. Just stop worrying. Have you tried not thinking
If
about
only
it?
if it's as easy as that, I'll tell you.
Yeah. Luke says, have you tried not worrying about it? Marcus says, when I'm spiralling, I clear my schedule and give myself time to ruminate more effectively. Addy says, cry yourself to a pit of despair until you can't open your eyes and pretend it didn't happen. So pretty inspiring things from the Airing Out audience. Thank you for everyone for getting involved, and we'll see if we got any more in the other one. Everyone's just sad. You'll just have to get over it. Right. Amazing, optimistic start to today's episode. So, obviously it all starts at the beginning. So why don't you tell me a little bit about your childhood?
Yeah, absolutely. So my childhood, I was basically born and brought up in an area in the lower end of Dorset. So it's in Dorchester, but it was on the outskirts of Dorchester village. I used to go to school. I really struggled with school because of sort of, my learning. I really struggled. And I'm from a gypsy background, and, most of my days off that I had at the weekends were on the site with my family.
Right.
And my granddad, and we'd be outside playing. It was a lot of outside playing. It was really, really good fun. Little did I know that my other friends were sort of at home studying. Right. And I sometimes wish that I would have done that, because life probably would have been a lot easier, but I didn't straight away. And as I kind of grew up, I then went to middle school at Puddletown, and then after school, I did.
Sorry, that's where I went.
Did you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Amazing.
did. I went to Puddletown Middle School, and I loved it. It was really, really nice. And small world, eh?
Yeah, it is.
I really, really enjoyed it. And then I had to go to the top school, higher school they call it, don't they? In Thomas Hardy School. And did you go there as well?
That's where I went.
Oh, nice. Small world, isn't it? And basically, I really, really struggled in Thomas Hardy School, to be quite honest with you. There was multiple things that got missed in Thomas Hardy School. I really struggled because I was one of them learners, I'd just keep really quiet. And if I didn't know something, I didn't have the confidence to put my hand up and say, I'm really struggling with this. And anyway, I left Thomas Hardy School with not one GCSE.
Really?
But in my head, I always knew I wanted to be a paramedic. And the reasoning behind that is because my granddad was quite unwell. He lived with us because my nan died very young. So I was sort of one of his carers with my mum and her sister and family. And I remember them coming out and thinking, blimey, what an inspiration they are. And I really, really want to do that. I want to be that person. And I basically spoke to a connections advisor back in the day. I don't know if you remember them.
I don't know.
It's like careers advice more than anything. Right. And I remember having the chat, and they were like, we're admirable for what you want to do, Jessie, but you don't have a GCSE, it's not going to happen.
Right.
And I'm one of these people, Sam, if something tells me something's not going to happen, I'll make it happen.
Yeah.
So I went to Weymouth College. They were incredible.
Yeah.
They did a learning sort of assessment, and from that assessment, it was identified that actually I had dyslexia. So overall, I wasn't that thick. Don't get me wrong, I'm not an A-star student, but it came out that actually there was a problem underlining, and that was it. And then once they got me the correct help and the correct tools that were in place for learning, I really thrived. And I did my access course and did really well at it. And I then had to apply for universities. So here comes the hard work again, and the setbacks again.
Yeah.
Again, which I'm sure we'll explore later, goes back to the mental health, the depression, the anxiety, the self-doubt.
Yeah.
Now, I've had that my whole life. No matter what I do, I've always had a lot of self-doubt. You know, if someone chooses me to do something like you inviting me, you know, generously to do this today, it's straight away, you know, why me? There's loads of other people out there that are more interested, you know, and that's how my brain always goes to. So it's just overcoming that.
Yeah.
But after 4 rejections, on the 5th one, I actually got into university, and I did really well. I passed everything first time.
Did you?
Yeah, I don't believe, casting back, there was anything I actually failed. I come out of my degree, got a job as a paramedic straight away, and worked my way up in the ambulance service, really. And whilst that was going on, just before that, I do like a challenge in life. I like a stressful life, as I'm sure you've gathered already. I thought, I can't lie to myself anymore.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I can't lie to myself anymore. I can't lie to my family. And I need to be happy because life is really, really short.
How old were you at this time?
I think I was probably 19 or 20.
Right.
Yeah. So not that long ago.
I
Obviously,
thought
I'm
you'd been
only
older.
33.
Setting up everything that you'd been doing, I thought you'd be like mid-20s, 30s, but no, fair enough.
Yeah. So it was really tough. And I remember thinking, you know, I need to do what's best for me in life.
Yeah.
And I'm one of these people, especially now. I used to really worry about what other people think. Always used to worry. No matter what I did or what I didn't do, I'd always sit there and reflect first and post event. So I would always think, you know, am I doing this? Is this going to affect anyone else around me? Whereas now I don't do that. I just think, actually, you need to do what's right for you, Jessie.
Yeah.
And I don't feel I've done too bad at it this far. Don't get me wrong, it could still go horribly wrong. But, you know, life is one big lesson, isn't it?
Yes.
And you learn it right up until your last day, unfortunately. That's just how life is. And I thought, nope, I need to tell the truth and be honest. So I told my family, and it was a shock to them. It was a shock to them. There's no point in lying. It was a shock to them when I came out as gay. You know, in my culture, it's not like looked upon negatively, but it is a shock to the family. You know, there's traditions that are followed. And when you break a tradition in any type, you know, way or form, I mean, I often relate this, and this might sound ridiculous to the royal family. You live a way of led life. And if you happen to do something that's outside of that circle, it can go one of two ways.
It's almost paved out for you.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I just did what I wanted to do. And, you know, I'm still here and I did it. And I'm really happy. You know, me and Andy have been together now 12 years. I'm obviously limited to what I want to say about my children, which I know you totally respect, but I'm happy to share a little bit. You know, me and Andy have adopted children. We have children together. And to be honest, it's the best thing we've ever done. It's absolutely amazing. And if you would have said to me back in them days of middle school and just going into Thomas Hardy School that, you know, you would be a paramedic, you'd have been a flight paramedic, a manager, a mentor, your own aesthetics business, and not having a GCSE, I would have quite frankly laughed at you, Sam, to be honest with you.
It's quite the CV.
But yeah, that's me. That's me at the moment.
A whistle-stop tour. Wow, my goodness. And that is why you are here, and that's why we wanted to talk to you.
Thank you.
So why don't you tell me a little bit about this culture that you lived in? Because something that you wanted to get across in this interview, and you told me, is that your upraising was different.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Talk to me a little bit about how it was different from, say, the other kids at school who were back home studying. What was it that you were doing?
Yeah, so as a gypsy child, you know, you're much more practical and hands-on. Well, supposedly, I can tell you, I definitely wasn't practical and hands-on.
Right.
You know, if you ask me to fix something, I definitely can't do it. You know, give me a body, I can probably do. I know what I'm doing. But you give me something else to fix, I struggle with it. But growing up's very different. You know, we are very lucky actually, because it's very much outdoors, it's animal based, it's horses, it's dogs. You know, for example, my friend at a week, you know, on one of the weekends was going away somewhere, and they were doing motocross events and stuff like that. And, you know, he had to stick to that. That was his right.
Oh,
you know,
really?
his mum and dad were very firm with him that you must do it. Whereas myself, at that weekend, I'd be on the local site, spending time with family, having a laugh outside fires, cooking outside. As I say, walking dogs, going over the back of the site, making dens.
Yeah.
You're very much hands-on.
Yeah.
And it was a laugh. It was really nice quality time. And, you know, one of my fondest memories is with like my cousins on the site, and we made a rope swing.
Yeah.
And, you know, it doesn't sound much, but back then it was quite a lot. It was a big deal to us. You know, we really enjoyed it. And I felt, as much as people say, you know, sometimes we're underprivileged, at that moment in time, I felt pretty privileged to do that.
Yeah.
And our morals are really good, you know. As much as I said, you know, being gay and being a gypsy, it's quite a shock. And don't get me wrong, you do get negativity. You know, you're always going to get that no matter what you do in life. But you just have to rise above that and be the bigger person as such.
Yeah.
And just concentrate on yourself and no one else. And that ultimately, Sam, to be honest, now what I do is concentrate on my family. So, and when I say my family, I mean under my roof. So, you know, my children, my husband, my mum, as long as they're all okay and they're happy with what I'm doing, I generally couldn't care what anyone else thinks. And I think, you know, to develop that mind frame and that mindset, it takes a long time.
Yes.
Because you have to be really, really confident and competent in yourself. And they really are two different things.
Wow. Okay. When you said about the rope swing, it kind of made me think, you get kids who've got parents who give them everything, who spoil them. It sounded like when you had this rope swing, it sounded like you were grateful for what you had.
Absolutely. My mum had, you know, my mum, bless her, she had a really difficult time.
And as children, like...
And I'm so grateful to her as a mother. You know, she's the best mum that anyone could ever wish for. And my lifetime goal was to do what I've done now, you know, for her to have a really nice house, to live with us, as you can see, which she does, and live a good life, really, and retire and not have to work. And she doesn't, which is brilliant, you know.
That must be so fulfilling.
It is, because that was my goal. Because, you know, back in the day, she didn't have much. We didn't have much at all, you know, and she used to have to work loads, and I would stay at home with my granddad, or Chris, who was like my adopted father. He was amazing to me. He was, you know, a brilliant father figure. And, you know, mum would be working all the hours that God would send to, you know, as a cleaner at the hospital, to try and work as hard. So she couldn't afford to do everything. Yeah. I mean, she did. She was amazing. She spoiled me rotten Christmas, birthdays. But it was hard for her. So yeah, you were grateful for what you get, and I still have that same mindset, and I want to implement that in my children. You know, regardless of how high up you go, what wages you earn, you really must enjoy the little things in life, and making your own swing is a very good thing to do, rather than being rich and just going out and buying it.
Yeah, that's a good little metaphor, isn't it? Make your own swing. Yeah, I like that. So, if you were living out and working outside and playing with animals, and you had friends doing motocross, at what point did you kind of realise, or did you realise that, oh, okay, I'm not the same as these kids from school, or my life's a little bit different to everyone else who's... Did you have that kind of realisation?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was middle school. Yeah. And unfortunately, it was in a negative light.
Was it?
Yeah. So basically, you know, the school bus would pick us up in Piddlehinton and take us to Puddletown Middle. Yeah. And when they'd pick us up, you know, all the children would notice that, you know, I had family on the site. And when they got off and I said, you know, see you later on, cousin, you know, see you later, love you loads, they would then latch onto the fact that they were on the site, so I must be related. And I think, and I was never ashamed of it. I've always been open about it, that, you know, where I'm from and who I am, I'm not ashamed of it at all. You are what you are at the end of the day. And I just remember there was one particular girl, she latched onto it and she told the whole school, and, you know, she was sort of saying how much of a gypsy I was, and, you know, people say the most hurtful things. And then that was a moment that sort of shook me and thought, you're different. You're different than your friends that you're with, you know? Most of my friends were absolutely amazing. In fact, all of them. But there was a few people that weren't friends, that weren't okay with it, you know? And I can't help but think now I'm 33. At the time, I thought it was them. But at 33, you then look back at a 12 and 13-year-old, you often can't help as it being steered from your peers or your older adults.
Yeah. Sorry, in what way do you mean?
So, like parents.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, sometimes parents have a bad perception of something.
Right.
And I think that the rule that I always try and stick by, and I always try and tell everyone this, you know, whether you're a gypsy, you're gay, you're straight, whatever, you get good and you get bad. Some people make bad decisions, people make good decisions, but no one is perfect. Just because you are, say, gypsy doesn't mean to say that you are automatically someone who steals, who does the wrong stuff, who doesn't look after people. You know, they get this horrible stereotype, right, which isn't nice. And, you know, I think this might be an acceptable time to mention it. Yeah. But, you know, as you know, I was in the Sun recently for an interview that I did.
Yes, you were.
And you know, this lovely guy in America made a video about me in the middle of the night, which I thought was absolutely lovely. I was really honoured, yeah. And it was so nice. The content behind it was amazing. Okay. But some of the comments were absolutely awful. And it was nothing about being gay. That didn't bother them at all. The fact that bothered them was the gypsy word. And they didn't actually see any of the article. All they saw was gypsy. So they literally put underneath, you know, what's he been arrested for now? You know, what's he done wrong? And actually, if they'd have opened up the article, they would have saw that actually it's about something completely different.
Yeah, it's a positive, inspirational story.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Some people are like that. It just makes me think, okay, but why are you saying it like that? You're trying to say this horrible thing to me, but what is it that's making you say that? Yeah. Like if I put myself in your shoes, why are you upset? Why are you angry? Why are you trying to bring me down? And it just, gives you a little bit of perspective into, like, I know you're trying to do me harm, but, you know, who's hurt you? Yeah. But what are some of the kind of misconceptions that people have about being Romani gypsy?
I think one of the biggest misconceptions is that, you know, what is it, something you normally get? I'm trying to think of the word, like, you dirty, stinking gypsy, you know, you smell, charming. You know, your house stinks. Yeah. And, you know, or the biggest thing that you get all the time, oh, where's your caravan then? And I'm like, I've, you know, we don't have a caravan. We live in a house. And they're like, oh, but you're a gypsy. Don't you have to have a caravan to be a gypsy? You know, to be a gypsy? Absolutely not. It's something you're born into. It's, you know, your family. It's not to do with materialistic things. You know, if you're born as a gypsy, you could live in a palace. You're still a gypsy. You can never get away from that. And I wouldn't want to get away from it. I'm very proud of it. I'm very pleased that I am. But I think that's the biggest thing that people jump to all the time. Is, you know, oh, where's your caravan? Rather than trying to explore, actually understand what it means.
What do you love about being a gypsy?
I love the family, like how close we are as a family. You know, don't get me wrong, there are family upheavals. There always is, there isn't there in every family. But the one thing I would say about my family, if any of us are ill, or, you know, there's a significant event, you know, it doesn't have to be negative, like illness. It could be a party, it could be a wedding. You know, people will be there to support you. And I cannot lie, on my wedding day, you know, I got married in Cyprus, and it is new, very new to my family, a man marrying another man. It's a huge thing, let alone being gay, but they all attended and they came to Cyprus and paid for themselves, you know, got on the plane and come. And I was very grateful for that. And that's just an example as to how close-knit the community is, and you look after one another. You know, it's not about, you hear some families that, you know, as patients that I've been to, and I'm like, oh, have you got your daughter or son around? They're like, no, they've emigrated to Australia. And I'm like, God, you're 90 and you're here. It just wouldn't happen. It's unheard of. I'm not saying it's wrong, but I'm just trying to explain the differences between the two. Yeah, okay. In this gypsy culture, you must have felt at some point that you might not have perhaps fit in with the... when did you know that you perhaps didn't like girls, or you might have liked boys? Very early on. Yeah, and I say very early on. I think it was probably about the age of 14. I would say 13, 14. And that's when I felt very, very isolated and alone. Okay. Because obviously, you know, I'm a gypsy, and that's probably, you know, you have this preconception, as I said, that your friends are thinking all these things about you. And then obviously I'm then gay, and then I'm worried about the rejection from family. And then you end up in the middle of this sort of horrible feeling, because you've got your family on the left and your friends on the right, and you're stuck in the middle. And it's about not knowing what to do. Yeah, I can imagine knowing in your culture that being gay isn't something that's commonly accepted, and knowing within yourself, you must have felt like you were keeping the biggest secret on earth. Yeah, I did. I did actually. What was that like? Horrible. Yeah. Absolutely horrible. You know, and, you know, there were thoughts I remember really, really clear. I was actually hospitalised, Not many of my family know that, but I don't mind getting out there because I want people to understand actually what it feels like, and sometimes you can feel alone. And if someone sees this that's going through what I went through or how I felt, then I want to change people's lives. I want to help them. I remember one day being so lost and isolated. I got very heavily drink. I'm not a drinker. I'm actually really boring. I get told this by family members all the time. We'll be on a day out somewhere and everyone's having a drink and I'm sat there with a coffee. And it's the running joke. But I generally, I'm not a massive. I do have a drink and I like partying, but I'm not drink mad. Do you know what I mean?
I get you.
And I remember just being drunk this day on the Weymouth seafront, and I thought, I can't cope with this. I want out. And I did. I took a huge overdose and I ended up in hospital. Dorset County Hospital. I was really, really poorly. And, I had treatment and stomach pumped and all of them things. And it was a really, really lost time because I just didn't know what to do for the best. And at the time it was quite difficult because my mum was away, bless her, with family. So I led her to believe everything was fine. I didn't tell her because I didn't want to worry him.
Wow.
And there was no one else really I could turn to. So I felt really, really lost and isolated. And I think that was the lowest time of my life, how I felt. But I remember Chris, the guy that I refer to as my dad. He, bless his heart, he sat there with me, and he was an elderly bloke, and he held my hand all night in the hospital. And he said, you don't have to tell me what's going on. I think he had an inkling that something wasn't right. But he said, Jessie, I'm always going to be here for you. And it's really weird because he's actually here with us today in the room.
Is he?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Shout
out to Chris.
So he was a lovely, lovely bloke. Really good dad figure.
That's unquestionable love right there.
Yeah, it was lovely. It was really nice. And he really helped me sort of, I don't know, just be happier. He never knew about me being gay. I remember telling him, we have the running joke. It's not funny, but it was funny at the time, sort of. Most people might find this funny, they might not. He was in hospital with an angina attack. And I thought, oh God, I need to tell him that, I've come out as gay to the family and I don't want him to find out by anyone else. So I went up to the hospital to tell him, and I told him, and then he got chest pain and ended up with a cardiac arrhythmia. And it was quite fun. I mean, he found it hilarious. He was like, you're trying to kill me off. And he was just like, I honestly, Jessie, I couldn't care. He said, I was just worried what you were actually going to tell me, because the way you said you've got to tell me something, I thought you were going to tell me you had cancer or something. But he was the most accepting person and really, really looked after me, Wow. And it was quite a tough, it was not quite a tough, it was a horrific time.
Yeah, I bet.
And I can only imagine that there's people out there today that are also in the same position.
Yeah.
And you do feel lost, you feel isolated, you feel depressed, you feel like a letdown, you're experiencing all these emotions and you don't know what to do for the best.
Just trying to put myself in your position, I can't imagine what it must be like to have this this feeling which you can't question. It's there, but you can't help but feel that's wrong, or your culture tells you in some way that it's wrong. My goodness, I can't imagine it. It was tough. It was really, really tough. But then I came out and the response wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. My family were shocked. I'm not going to sit here and lie, because they were. And, it was a huge shock. And I think it's because I'd actually had girlfriends, because I pretended that I had a girlfriend. I generally thought I could just stop it. Honestly, genuinely thought if I just have a girlfriend, it will just all go away. Well, it's common sense now at 33, I can tell you it doesn't go away, but you do whatever you do to survive. It's survival mode. In your head to make you feel better. And, it was a shock from my family, and I did move away. And I moved away and I've never gone back. I've never lived back in Dorchester. What age did you move away?
I moved away at 19 or 20. And I remember getting on the train with my black bags in my clothes. And I just remember being on that train thinking, oh my God, how am we going to do this, Jessie? What are we going to do? Because bearing in mind, I've only just had my access course. I'm still trying to get into university. I didn't really know Andy that well at that point. I was trusting that the person that I met, was a nice person, and actually, the person I'm in love with. And luckily, he turned out to be all right, sort of. Yeah. No, he is good as gold, bless him. But, because it could have been horrible, but I just felt like I felt shame and guilt. I didn't want to walk through town of Dorchester because I was worried I was going to be judged so much, and, who I was going to bump into, what was going to be said to me. Now I don't care because I'm old enough and ugly enough now to kind of answer back for myself.
Yeah.
But obviously back then, as a young, naive sort of teenager, I was scared. Yeah. It's not a lie. I was scared because, you are worried, aren't you? You're worried about what other people think rather than your own self. Yeah. And I remember moving away and one of Andy's friends, it was, a nightmare really. Andy picked me up and he was like, I've got to go back to work. And I was like, you're joking. Like, I've just come out with my family and you're going back to work. I've got no one to talk to. And one of Andy's friends was lovely and he stayed with me for the day. And he just said, at the end of the day, Jessie, if you're happy, you're happy. And it's, if people really love you for who you are, they'll accept you for who you are. And if they don't accept you, then unfortunately they're not worth, any time in your life. Yeah. And that's literally what I did. I took his advice and I stayed here in the Bournemouth area. We moved to Southampton because obviously I got in University of Portsmouth. And I used to commute and Andy used to commute down here. I do remember me and Andy actually being homeless. Sorry, I'm just casting back a little bit. We went to the council, our local council in the poor Bournemouth area. I won't name point because I don't want you getting sued or anything like that.
Thank you.
But we went in there and basically the guy said to me, we won't house you because you're gay and it won't last.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
Word for word. I am not joking, honestly. And we were just like, oh God. And anyway, we managed to fight it out and he said, look, you can have this hostel place. And anyway, they put us in this hostel and I'm not joking, the shared toilet, it was just horrendous. Like the bed sheets were dirty, the place was filthy. The toilet we were using had needle syringes on the floor. Yep. It was just dreadful, absolutely awful. And then I just remember thinking, oh my God, Jessie, what have you done? You've got out of the frying pan and gone into the oven, or the other way around, however they say it. You know what I mean? I generally felt like that. Yeah. It felt absolutely suffocating. I just remember thinking, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? And then we got up the next day and me and Andy, the council decided, whilst we were out with our stuff there, that they weren't going to house us. And they phoned us, threatened us with the police. They said, if you're not back here within the hour, we're going to send the police out looking for you because you got the key. And I remember Andy, he went to his bank and I went to my bank. And I went back into the bank and I said, what's the matter? And he looked really guilty. And the banking guy started laughing. I said, what have you done? And he goes, I've taken an $8,000 loan. I said, you've done what?
Really?
Yeah. And I tell you, it was the best thing he ever did because we went into Robert's estate agents and they won't mind me mentioning, I think they're amazing. And they really were our saviour that day.
Were they?
We went into them in Charminster and said our situation. And, we had a poor credit rating and stuff and it was all a bit of a nightmare. And she said, look, I've just got the perfect property for you. No way. Lansdowne Road, it's £400 a month and it's a studio flat. And we were like, yeah. She was like, so we don't have to affect your credit ratings. We don't want you to get refused. You can pay it all up front and then you've got a house for 6 months or 12 months, whatever it was. And it was amazing. Yeah. We went to Tesco's, got loads of different shops. You know what it's like when you get out your house for the first time and literally no word of a lie. I mean, I know the camera can't pick up this full room, but it was almost smaller than this room. All the bed was built into the wall, but we were just so proud of it because it was our first home. Still, certain family members I hadn't heard from or seen, but it was nice because I felt like actually, no, I can do this, and I'm going to do this, and I will stand on my own 2 feet.
Bloody hell, good for you.
And then we moved to Southampton, a better flat again, and just as we've me and Andy have been together, all we've ever done is try to do better. We're not lazy people. We're kind of always seek out to do the best we can do. People say I'm a bit crazy. I think it's because I work better under pressure. So I always set unrealistic goals because I find if I achieve something, I'm then a bit bored because I'm like, I want to do something else now.
Look at that.
But yeah.
A couple of questions before we move on to the next section. First was, I wanted to know, you painted us a picture of what it was like to harbour this secret, this thing that you didn't want to share with your family. But what was it like within you as an individual after you told them, after you'd kind of said to them, this is who I am, this is what I am, and kind of let the cat out the bag, as it were? How did it feel within
For me?
Yeah.
Horrible.
Really?
Yeah.
Did it?
Yeah, horrible. Everyone asked that same question, Sam, and I know why you're asking me it, because I think what people want to hear is that, what a relief.
Oh, well, I'll be. Okay.
What a relief that would be.
Yeah, okay.
And without sounding, again, I'm saying about stereotype, but now I'm stereotyping myself, but I'm just trying to explain it. It is a relief because you're not hiding anything.
Yeah.
But then that anxiety turns into another anxiety.
Does it?
Yeah,
Right.
it does, because you're then anxious of how are people going to respond. How are your wider family going to respond? Are you going to be invited to family events? Are you going to see your relatives? Are you going to, how's it going to go? And it was difficult at first. I didn't see people for a long time. Long time.
Okay. And how were they when you did see them?
Okay, but you got this sense of, I don't know, difference. Sense of difference.
Almost like a
bit of a laugh.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I was going to say like a bit of an elephant in the room.
Yeah, potentially. Okay. But almost, I don't know. Just sort of, you feel like a bit of a laugh, I suppose. But again, it might just be me being paranoid. You hear stories. I did hear loads of things back. I had family members ringing me up because there were certain members out there saying horrible, horrific stuff, that was just disgusting to say about family. But I just thought, you know what, you're letting yourself down and people will see you for who you are. And and they did. So it's all good, you know?
That's them. That's what they have to say about the world. And leave them to it. The last thing that I wanted to touch on in this area is if there was somebody who feels like they're in your shoes, if there's someone on the end of this video or audio who is resonating with how you were feeling about coming out, what sort of thing would you say to them?
The only thing I'd say is the best thing I ever did.
Yeah.
And genuinely, no matter how lost you feel, you're not on your own. And, you will make life really happy for yourself. There's no point in living a lie. There's no point in living life for someone else, because you get one chance at this. There's no rehearsal. As each year goes past, you get older. And I can tell you, I'm so glad I did when I did, because, I'm looking around now and I'm 33 and I can remember like when I was 18 or 13, it was like it was yesterday. Life has gone in a flash, and it's not about pleasing other people. You have to be happy yourself. And until you're happy with yourself, you won't be happy doing anything else. Does that make sense? And I think the message I'm trying to make is, looking back, I really struggled with learning. And I can't help but think, had I been happy and true to myself, would I have thrived a bit more? And I think, it's difficult to achieve all your ambitions in life, your other ambitions, like, your learning, careers, businesses, jobs you want to do. It's very difficult to do them things whilst you've got such a dark cloud over you at the same time. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Like, free yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you have to do it for you, and it's difficult. It takes huge courage to be true to yourself. But I think, once you do that, you'll feel a lot better.
Amazing. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have a quick interval with our questions and put in a couple positive ones. You remember these? You like these? What do you love about yourself?
Oh, that one's difficult.
No, it's not.
Oh, I hate that one.
No.
What do I love about myself? I love now that I'm different.
Yeah.
I like that I'm different. And it's really weird, isn't it? Because I said to you at the beginning earlier that actually
you hate them.
You hated yourself, and then you love yourself. They're two different things. And I look back and I think, do you know what, Jessie? You're 33, and from how you've built your way up on your own, or with my immediate family, my mum, my husband, you haven't done too bad. And I think I do love that feeling. I like it when you get that recognition. And to be honest with you, I've had some lovely comments from family members that have sort of said, you're doing all right. You've done really, really well for yourself. You should be proud of yourself. Yeah. And there's no animosity there or jealousy, because you do get that. And I know, there's people out there are like that, which I don't get. I've never been that person. I think if someone's doing well in life, fair play to them, good on them. We've all each got opportunities in life, and it's down to you to take them. It's up to you what you do with your week, no one else's. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. I think that's what I love.
Amazing. I love that. Full circle almost. From not loving yourself to being like, you know what, the thing I love about me is that I'm very much me. I like that. Okay. What gets you out of a rut when things aren't going so well? How do you get yourself out of it?
I think that happens to me a lot.
Yeah.
I won't lie, there's most days where I do get myself in a rut, and or I'm worried about something, I get anxiety. And the biggest thing I can say to people is talk it out. Because often you can make such a mountain in your head about something.
Oh yeah.
But actually, when you get it out and you sit and talk to someone you trust, or a family member you love and trust, or your husband, your wife, your girlfriend, or close friends, and you just have a little chat and be honest and open about how you're feeling, they can break it down. And often when things are broken down, it doesn't seem as big.
Yeah.
And I always think that, because it's like anything, isn't it? You know, if you unpick things, it helps you. It can kind of help your thought processes and what you're getting stressed over. Don't get me wrong, there are days I do that and I'm just like, nah, can't see a way out here. I'm really struggling with this. And, you know, it can be a nightmare. But then I'll take myself off for a walk. I like to go walk along the beach, listen to a bit of music, you know, play with the children in the garden. I'm a massive kid myself, I will be honest with you. Everyone jokes with Andy because they're like, you've adopted him rather than him being your husband. Not a lie. You know, I do that. I find that I do that as well. I can flip from, you know, being really serious and down or feeling rubbish about myself or dwelling on things. And then all of a sudden I'm being really immature. And I think it's a coping mechanism actually. Yeah. But I know that I have to revisit it.
Yeah, okay.
And until I've revisited it, it's in your brain, isn't it? So it's about going back to that part of your brain thinking, right, why did that upset me? What could I do differently? Definitely. And sometimes you've got to allow yourself to be upset. It's normal. You know, we can't all be happy 100% of the time.
Yeah. And
it's not healthy to be happy 100% of the time. But it's about understanding why you're upset and what you can do about it.
What's making you feel that way?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Is there anything that you would have done differently about coming out?
Yes. I think I'd done it a lot sooner.
Okay.
Yeah, I would have done it a lot sooner. Because I put myself in positions that were actually not very nice. You know, I forced myself to be with girls when I didn't want to be. You know, I remember walking through the town one night with one of my mates and, you know, you get questioned all the time, you know, where's your girlfriend? Why haven't you got a girlfriend? Why haven't you got a girlfriend? And it's that peer pressure, constant peer pressure of trying to be something for somebody to make them happy rather than yourself. And I just wish that I had the mindset that I've got now back then. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like now I will do what makes me happy. I will not please anyone.
Yeah.
I'll do what makes me happy. You know, if I want to do a different job, I'll do it. If I want to speak out, I'll do it. You know, there's nothing that I will not do if I want to do it. But back then, an immature me, an old me that was, you know, had confidence issues, self-esteem issues, you know, all of them things, I wish that I would have just known what I know now. But again, it's difficult, isn't it, to dwell on the past, because there are some things you can't change, and unfortunately that's one of them. But I'm glad I did it when I did it, but it would have just been nicer to, I don't know, do it a bit earlier than I did.
I get you. It's like you remember a lot of pain, and it's almost like you could have saved yourself that pain.
Yeah,
but
I do. And it's quite sad really, because I do, sometimes I sit there, and I've done this before, and you know when you imagine yourself, I don't know, I just saw myself, I saw my old self. I just remember laying in bed thinking, God, that was you, and that's how you felt at that time, and that was really sad, Jesse.
Yeah,
like that was, and I think you need to give yourself credit sometimes for hard things. We're really hard on ourselves. You know, there's so much stuff out there nowadays, and we're all so self-critical. You know, people don't give themselves a pat on the shoulder enough, is what I think I'm trying to say.
No, I'm definitely like that.
Yeah, I think, do you know what? I think most of us are. You know, if you ask someone, like with us here, we say, you know, what went wrong today? I guarantee you'll have 2 or 3 things at least. So if you said to yourself, actually, what have you done really well today?
You'd be like,
it's hard to think about, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's tricky, isn't it? It's like, excuse me, it was like what you were saying earlier about the girls on the bus. You have all these great, amazing mates, but what is it that sticks out?
Yeah, the negative.
Horrible things that these people are saying. But I don't know. To me, that's another reason to fight for positivity, and to, like you say,
absolutely
give yourself that chance and say, actually, you know what? Fair play. Well done. Look at what you did and where you are now.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's important to take that time, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, it's really, really important. It's self-care is a huge thing.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, we all need, and I'm definitely guilty, but I'm constantly just trying to keep on a treadmill and keep busy, but you know, no matter who goes on a run or out, and I always try and relate it to a running machine. You know, you can run and you can hide as much as you want, but eventually it's going to stop and you've got to get off. And it's really, really important when you get off to just, I don't know, have a break, give yourself a break, and just, you know, brainstorm things, write things out, think about it, you know, do some meditation, listen to some nice music, do whatever you can do to try and help recharge yourself and reset yourself.
Yeah, something I've been thinking about a lot lately is some men, not all. It's just how far they'll go to like run away from their emotions.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I think about people who are like on oil rigs or doing all of these crazy, risky, dangerous things. But yeah, men just scary for men. I definitely think.
Yeah.
Some men more than others, but yeah, taking that time to stop, think, and kind of look inside yourself.
I think they worry, don't they? They worry that it's going to be a weakness.
Yeah.
Whereas actually, it's a strength.
It's definitely comes from a place of being perceived as a weakness, but as you say, it's a strength to be able to say to yourself, no, this is me, this is how I feel when I'm going through this right now. I'll say fair play, good for you to own your emotions. Yeah, what's it, a fantastic book by Grayson Perry, The Descent of Man. Yeah, amazing. He talks a lot about how the old masculinity, the old post-World War II, keep calm and carry on, doesn't really work anymore.
It's different. Yeah.
The world is different, and perhaps it's time to take a look at masculinity and see what we can do, rather than being the stiff upper lip, saying, okay, no, these are my emotions.
Yeah.
These are the way it makes me feel. I don't have to be so competitive, and I don't have to size up each other all the time. It's
always seen as cool, isn't it? You hear that quite a lot, when you ask someone, are you all right? Yeah, I'm fine. That's when I'm worried.
It's such a British thing, isn't it?
And I used to worry about that, especially in the ambulance service and stuff, when you do really distressing jobs, and I mean really distressing jobs that make your eyes water, and they really do. And you'll understand this from your service that you work in as well. And it's too easy to say, I'm fine, I'm all good, thank you.
Yeah, because it's almost like a deflection.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? Or living the dream.
Like doors closed, you're not coming in.
Yeah, that worries me, because that then says to me that individual's probably loading that onto the brain. And okay, if that's one thing, but actually if you add them over the year, that's a lot to keep on your brain. And if you're not offloading anywhere, then it becomes a problem. And then often then what you find, people then develop mental health problems, whereas it could have been avoided. So I'm a great I'm a great believer in talking. I think talking's a very good medicine. Yeah,
we on the podcast we mentioned it, particularly in the earlier episodes. We advocate for asking twice.
Yeah.
Saying, oh, how are you? Yeah, I'm doing okay. Right, how are you really doing? Just cutting through that barrier.
Yeah.
Saying, I get that you might not want to tell me what's going on, and it might be difficult to admit what's going on, but it's okay. Like, this is a safe space. You can trust me.
Or even when you're not, Sam, there's times where I'm generally not okay.
Yeah. And
Andy's noticed it as well, like with me. He sort of said, you're not okay. You're really sad today. You're really snappy. And there is no valid reason.
Okay. Yeah.
But it's good to validate the points. Whereas actually, yeah, you're right. I am feeling sad today. I don't know why. I don't know why. And basically, it could be a trigger. It could be something that my brain's picked up that I've not registered. A smell, a taste, an area or a location that's gone back to a long time ago where I did something and it annoyed me that much or upset me. It's then come back. So I think it's just recognising how your emotions are. There doesn't always have to be a reason. Do you know what I mean?
I love that. Yeah, I'd never thought about it in that way. That all of a sudden you're in a horrible mood and someone's pointed it out.
Sorry, I didn't mean to
No, not at all. I'm just saying that, it could have been this, or it could have been something from way back when. Like, I think where I'm at the start of my fire service career, I haven't had lots of perhaps triggering moments like that. But later on down the line, there might be the instance that you're talking about, and I think, oh shit, it could be something back then. I'm sorry, it's just never.
Yeah, it's weird how it does it.
Like that,
I remember it's really, really crazy. I'm obviously limited to what I can say because of confidentiality, but I had a child job, unfortunately, a child incident. And I, at the time, I think I thought that I dealt with it.
Yeah, okay.
Evidently I didn't. Because I did, the thing like, oh yeah, I'm fine, absolutely fine. Just another bad job, but I'll be fine.
Yep.
And I came home, and it was months after, there was an advert on TV, and it was to do with baby wipes. And honest to God, I don't know what came over me. I was just, I was sobbing.
Really?
Yep, absolutely sobbing. And I couldn't tell you why. And it only made me think a little bit later, I think it was a few days later, about that incident that I went to.
Really?
And I thought, blimey, that subconsciously really affected your brain and emotions.
Yeah, the things we lock away in our heads.
Yeah. And it wasn't, I didn't do it intentionally. It's just that I just did it subconsciously, but actually the effect of it was clearly a lot. It was still parked there.
My goodness.
And, I had to deal with it. And I'm definitely not embarrassed to say that there's been many incidents that I've seen in the ambulance service. I've been very unlucky to see some really distressing stuff. And, I've had to ask for help. I've had counselling, I've had time off work. And, that's not to look at you as a bad paramedic. It's not to look at you that, you can't do your job properly or you're not, hard enough for it. It's none of that. You will see.
It makes you more human.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it does. I think it's a positive thing. If you've got someone coming to your loved one, you don't want them to be a robot.
Yeah.
You want them to be a human and a person to sympathise and show empathy and care. And
on the other hand, imagine going to all these incidents and then meeting someone and being like, no, none of that affects me. Like, what?
Yeah, you think they were abnormal. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So over the years and all the experiences that you've had and the ups and downs and everything that's gone on, what would you say your relationship's been like with your mental health?
It varies. If you ask me that question on a particular day, I would say terrible.
Okay.
Like really bad sort of really, really bad. But on a good day, it's manageable. I do suffer with anxiety really badly. Always have done. Some days I manage it better than others. There are some days where I'll just literally fixate on something and I can't get it out of my head.
Yeah.
It's a negative feeling and negative thoughts. And it's hard to know what comes first, the feeling or the thought or the feeling. And it then, if I don't grab hold of it, it'll then spiral out of control.
Yeah.
It's quite difficult. Now, I am medicated for depression and anxiety. I have been for years.
Okay.
Funny enough, ever since coming out as gay. And I have tried coming off of it. It's citalopram. It's basically an antidepressant.
Yeah.
Very minimal dose. But I was on that. And basically, it didn't numb me because I didn't want that. I didn't want to be a zombie. I didn't want to be numbed. But I just wanted to feel a lot more positive about myself rather than negative. Whereas since being on it, I feel a lot better.
Do you?
But I'd be lying to you, Sam, if I said that, every day is a positive day for me and I don't struggle, because I do.
Well, that's it. You can't have the positive days without a negative day,
Yeah,
can you?
absolutely, yeah.
Can't appreciate the sun without the rain.
Yeah.
Okay. And so what were some of the more bleaker moments in your life? And if you had to look back and think, wow, that was not a good moment, not a good time.
Yeah, I remember I was living with my mum in Dorchester, and it was really, really tough. Like, we had some personal stuff going on, I won't talk about because it's not fair on mum, but there was, and other family members, personal stuff going on. And, I was trying to find a job that paid really well so I could look after me and mum and do better for ourselves. And it was just such a horrible time. And I just didn't know what to do for the best. I remember thinking, God, it's a nightmare. I'm a student at college. I've just paid out for an access course. I can't help mum with bills because I'm not earning enough money. I didn't have any physical time in the day to do work alongside the college. So I just remember that being such a horrible feeling and not knowing what to do about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, looking back on it, I think that was probably one of my worst times.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting that you say that, because it's not necessarily hinged on yourself. It almost comes from a place of these terrible times comes from a place of not being able to help someone else.
Yeah.
Not being able to support your mum. I think it's a testament to how much you love her.
Yeah.
So, nice. So what are some of the mental health challenges you faced?
The biggest one is people understanding it.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's for me, yeah, people actually understanding it.
Yeah.
Because often what you'll get is, well, you look okay, you look fine. But I always say to people, I think mental health, and I don't mean to, and I'm not snubbing illnesses or injuries or anything like that, I think mental health is probably worse than a physical injury. Because if you've got a physical injury, you can see it. So people, I don't know, if you've got crutches, they're careful. They sort of move out your way. Or if you've got a cut, they'll get you a plaster. When it's mental health, there's nothing physically wrong with you that they can see. And mental health, you're experiencing it on your own. You feel isolated in your own little head. and you kind of, you're experiencing all these emotions, feelings, and you can put on a really good front. I'm really good at doing that. And I think, it takes a lot of training and dedication.
Yeah. We were speaking about this in one of the solo episodes we did recently, because I went to an attempted suicide. It's the first one I had with the fire service.
Horrible.
And it tore my heart out. The guy survived, fortunately, but I made an episode about it, just kind of addressing the fact that this is still happening. And we basically wanted to signpost a lot more, but one of the points was that we needed to highlight is our enemy is a silent one, and it can be a silent killer, and sometimes it can do its thing and we can't ever tell that it's happening until it's too late.
Yeah. I've been to hangings, been to quite a few hangings where people have hung themselves, and it's awful. And the majority of the time, these people are under the radar. They've not sought out help. They've been alone, or often, people, the family or friends will tell you, they were fine yesterday. They were fine last night. We were having a laugh and planning a holiday for next week.
This means that they didn't know.
It just shows that they didn't know, and it just takes that one momentum or moment to change a lifetime and affect everything. Do you know what I mean? It's quite difficult, isn't it? Yeah.
I spoke to Brandon, who's the first person that we interviewed, and he was a suicide survivor.
Wow.
Who tried taking his life by hanging, and it was only because his mum stumbled across his to drop something by or to pick something up, and she saw him through the letterbox. But he's doing so well for himself now. He's doing so much. I see him on Instagram all the time. He's got a girlfriend now, and he's just got the biggest smile on his face when he's with her the whole time. Now he's doing well in his education, and he's doing mentoring for children in the community. So
that just shows you, doesn't it? And I love stories like that, but I also struggle with them. And I'll tell you why I struggle with them, is because I think if only these other people could have got found or caught just in time,
if we could have done something,
how would it have gone?
Yeah, it's a difficult one,
and I think that's the whole point of this for me, this messages, you know what I mean? To tell people, you're not on your own, no matter what's going on, illness, worries, stress, anxieties, talk, because there are people out here that actually do care. And sometimes it doesn't feel like that.
Yeah, and if we can just get more people talking about it, more people listening, whatever it is, the more awareness that we bring around mental health, the more it's okay to talk, and the more it's okay to not feel like shit or realise that you aren't alone. And I think that's ultimately what we're aiming for. Keep working on it. Keep talking to people, talking to good people. Are you?
Thank you.
Okay. How have you overcome the challenges that you've faced? So when you've been in the thick of it, you've spoken about numerous instances where you've been up against it completely. But what were the things within you that got you over them?
I think it's trying to look ahead and striving to do better. I think when you've got a focus or a dream or a goal, and it has to be your dream, not someone else's.
Yes.
And they are very different things. You hear of these people, they're training to be a doctor, and you talk to them, and they seem down and low in mood and just not happy. They look tired, stressed, and then you get to picture like you're a doctor, you've got into medical school, like life's amazing, and they're like, well, actually, I didn't want to be a doctor. It was my parents, my dad's dad was a doctor, my dad was a doctor, my mum's a doctor, and now I'm a doctor. That's going to be a really tough path to follow. It wouldn't be if you want to be that, but I feel it's really important in life to do what you want to do, because unless you do what you want to do, it's hard to enjoy it.
Yeah.
And I think, set yourself realistic goals. If bigger things happen, amazing, take opportunity, because there are opportunities out there for everyone.
Yeah.
And, there are ways of doing stuff. And I'm a firm believer in something, is if you truly want something, you can get it. You've just got to keep working at it.
Paulo Coelho, the author of The Alchemist, said, if you want something enough, the universe will conspire for you to have it.
Yeah.
Whether that be through your own outputs or the universe recognising that you want it and you're working for it. But no, I do agree with the sentiment.
But having said that, at times I can imagine you feel a million miles away from it. And I've done that, And again, it's the self-doubt that creeps in, isn't it?
I think that's part of the process.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think you've got to have that. You've got to I get it a lot at the moment where, particularly with the podcast, it's not, like we were saying before we started, I deeply believe in this and I know what good it can do for the world, but we're here a year and a bit down the line and we're making small steps, we're getting steady progress, but it's just it's having that belief next to how well it's doing. That isn't to say that I'm not grateful for everybody that's been here and helped me, and I'm definitely being more grateful for it at the moment, but it's difficult because you think, oh fuck, is this ever going to work out?
Yeah.
What am I doing wrong? What aren't I doing right? And it's difficult, but I think that is a necessary part of the journey in order to kind of push through that and prove that you want to do it to yourself. But listeners and everybody in the room, I don't mean to sound ungrateful. I was even thinking that people in the room now and everybody listening at home, you are helping me to live out my dream, and I'm so grateful for that. And I do think it is a privilege to struggle for something that you choose to do.
Absolutely.
I can piss and moan all I want, but my struggles that I'm having are to do with something that I'm incredibly passionate about, and that is a privilege in itself. So yeah, trying to be mindful about that. What are some of the things that have kept you going?
My biggest strive, and I know I've probably said this before, is to look after my mum.
Yeah.
That was my biggest kind of thing that pushed me, and wanting to do well and do her proud. You know, I wanted to do her proud. And I remember thinking, like, God, Jessie, you're a million miles away from this. You know, how are you going to do it? How are you going to ever own your own home, get a job? You know, they're never going to happen. These things are never going to happen to someone like you. Do you know what I mean? And it's very easy to get stuck in that rut. And then I then thought to myself, right, you've got to stop comparing yourself to other people. You have to stop trying to live someone else's life. And unfortunately, I think what we do massively as a country is we're constantly comparing to someone else. Constant. And, you know, you see it in media, in news articles, on telly. It's constantly someone trying to do better than anyone else. Rather than just, you need to get out of that mindset. You need to get out of that mind frame and you know, focus on yourself.
Yeah.
And giving yourself some credit and, you know, having a healthy, balanced life. And the reason I say that is I remember when I was doing some assignment work for the Weymouth College, when I was doing the access course, you know, there was a time that I just stayed in all the time. I didn't see anyone. I literally worked, constant. That's not healthy. You know, you need to get out, you need to see people.
Yeah.
However, there's a balance. If you want something, you've got to work for it. And, you know, the things that are hard to get in life don't come easy. And it takes time, dedication. Like yourself, Sam, what you're doing now, this is incredible.
Yeah.
It's a huge thing what you're doing. And, you know, you're helping loads of people, but you're here in your own time. This isn't your own employment, but you will grow, you will get busier. People will find you inspiring because you're doing this in your own time and you're putting the work and effort into it. And I think that's what pushed me and guided me and helped me through to where I am today.
Yeah. I heard another quote recently, which is relative to what you're saying. If you want to live an extraordinary life, you've got to become an extraordinary person.
Yeah, that's true.
If you want to live differently, you've got to do something differently. But lastly on this topic, what would you say to yourself back then, as you are now, if you could go back and speak to Jessie that was when he was a younger teenager, a child? What would you say to him?
Oh, that's a hard one, isn't it? That's really hard. I'd probably say you're going to be all right. Things will work out, and stay hopeful. Don't give up on your dreams, and look after yourself. Probably.
Wow. Amazing. So we're going to start to round off episode number 1. Do you want to do a couple positive questions before we do?
Yeah, go on, let's do that.
I realised when, just after we'd stopped talking about mental health, I jumped into the next question. I thought, oh fuck, I probably should have said something nice there.
We've tired them all out.
Yeah. How do you stay mindful?
I stay mindful by, I don't know, playing with my children in the garden, going off for walks, going out with friends, again, my immediate family go off for drives. That's my biggest advice to someone, is go out for a long drive. I love doing that. I've probably burnt a huge hole in the ozone there, but it's all good. Basically, we go out for like little drives, and I'm very lucky where I live, but I think, no matter where you live in the UK, we do live in a good country. There's often something you can drive to. If you're up north and there are no beaches, you can find the mountain to walk up, or if you're down south, you can find a beach to walk along. We've got some good areas, and I think just getting out, just giving yourself a little bit of time and credit, get a bit of time out, and that's what I really enjoy doing. And I like planning. I find another coping mechanism as well, sorry to go back a little bit, is planning something to look forward to.
Nice.
Now, I'm not saying it has to be extravagant, because it doesn't. It's common sense. We can't go on holiday every 2 weeks. We'd love to, but most people can't afford that. If you can, then guys, I'm so pleased for you. It's amazing. I'm not jealous at all. But plan something. Go on a day out somewhere. New Forest walk, or just realistic things that you can do. Just something to look forward to.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think that's the main thing in life. If you've got something to look forward to, you then appreciate why you're working hard.
Yeah.
But if you're working really hard and you've got nothing to look forward to, it's kind of hard to work.
Okay. Maybe that's where I could be doing a little bit better. Because at the moment it's just working, and then after the weekend. Rather than if I had something planned for the weekend, I'd be like, okay, cool, let's go. Let's work towards that.
And it doesn't have to be anything massive. And I won't lie, Sam, I'm really guilty for it. This weekend I've made a subconscious effort to do something, I think we're going out on Sunday for some fish and chips down the beach.
Nice.
Just something as basic as that.
Yeah.
But actually I'm thinking, it'd be really nice. No, my luck, it will rain. But it's all good. If it does, it'll be an even funny thing, but I won't let that stop me.
Yeah.
But an old me, with the mental health struggles and kind of getting out and pushing myself, I'd look at the rain and that would be my perfect excuse to get the blanket out and sit under the blanket. I love winter time. I love hibernating. Is it good for me? Absolutely not. Does it help my mental health? Absolutely not. But it's recognising what works, what strategies work for you.
Yeah, okay. So one last question. What are you grateful for?
Oh, I thought you were going to say, where'd you get your fish and chips from?
All right, no, go on. Where'd you get your fish and chips?
I have two favourite, Herbie's in Ferndown, or Sandbanks. It's amazing, and they're not actually that expensive, even though they're in Sandbanks. Right. They're not Sandbanks money. They're really nice.
Oh, okay. Might take
just a little tip.
Yeah, we'll have to visit them at some point.
And sorry, what was the other question?
What are you grateful for?
I am grateful for my husband, my children, my mum, my health, being able to get up in the morning and just do what I want to do. Given the opportunities that I've been given, I'm 33 and I've been given some amazing opportunities, just like you guys being here today. I'm very, very grateful for what people have offered me. I've met some amazing people along my journey so far, and I really look forward to what the future has in store for me, really.
Fantastic. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning into part 1. We hope you found it as inspiring as we have here. Tune in for next week's episode, where we're having part 2 of the interview, where we're going to be talking about being a paramedic, self-acceptance, and Jessie's reflections on his life. Jessie, why should people tune in?
Tune in, get involved, come and have a chat. Quite a funny person. I think so anyway. I might not be. You be the judge, guys. Tune on in, come and have a talk, come and listen, come and feel the real experiences that we all are struggling with. Thank you for listening to me, and I look forward to speaking to you again soon.
Couldn't have put it better myself. We'll see you next week. Take care.